What's up YouTube, Capital G here, checking out a really cool and I think a really awesome new spell card that comes out in Flames of Destruction. This is a Denko Sekka draw spell, which is really interesting because I never really associated Denko Sekka with like drawing cards, but this card is really neat, and actually it's cards like this that are the reason why I do not do live reactions to cards. I don't generally like to, put out a video immediately after seeing a card because I can't really think of all the ways to use it, and once I read this card you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about. So the first and the second effect are both hard once per turn. First effect, if you have no spell or trap cards in your graveyard, draw 2 cards. Alright, I like it. It's a pot of greed. Now you do have to have no spell and trap, so some of you guys might be like, oh come on Cap G, we're all not running banish.deck. Well, how am I supposed to use this? Don't worry, I'll get to that. After activating this card, you cannot activate spell/trap cards or effects for the rest of the duel except Light of Sekka. So that is a hell of a drawback. I'm talking about multiple hell of a drawbacks. Not only can you have no spell or traps in your grave, but this is the only spell that you could use for the rest of the entire game, and you can't use any traps either. Continuing on with the second effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard, reveal 1 monster in your hand, and if you do, return that to the deck and shuffle it. Then you get to draw 1 card. Okay, so this is one of those cards where you really look at it, obviously you see the high ceiling of it being a pot of greed, but then you're like, oh come on man, how am I supposed to have no spells and traps in my graveyard? And then you tell me for the rest of the duel I can't use any spells and traps except this card, and it seems like this card is borderline unplayable. And I don't know if this was Konami's intention, but when you really think about these types of cards, these weird, really gimmicky cards, a lot of times, maybe just by talking to other duelists, you can figure out some uses for this card. Now it just so happens that I've got a good friend who comes to my stream all the time. His name is Big Pimpin', yes, just like the Jay-Z song, and he plays a little deck called Super Heavy Samurai. Remember that archetype from Arc V? Gongetsuku played it on the anime. Yeah, well, you know that there are no spells and traps in that entire archetype. The entire archetype is comprised of nothing but monsters. There's really no other deck that's like Super Heavy Samurai. If you could play this in Super Heavy Samurai, it would give you a huge boost because you're talking about a pot of greed that can potentially fix your hand, and it doesn't matter that you can't activate any spells and trap cards for the rest of the duel except more copies of Light of Sekka because you're not running any spells and traps anyways. Like Super Heavy Samurai have tons of hand traps. They have a lot of cards that activate from the graveyard. Obviously they put themselves in defense mode and they can attack from defense. So this card is, to me, like an automatic staple in the like Super Heavy Samurai deck. Now I don't know if Konami had Super Heavy Samurai like in mind, but this card definitely breaks the archetype because you're just saying, hey, now Super Heavy Samurai players get to play 3 copies of Pot of Greed, and like what archetype wouldn't want that? I mean, if you're telling me like Lunar Lights get a free Pot of Greed that only they could use, hell yeah, I'll sign up for that. So this is actually going to be a really awesome card for that archetype. Now will it make it playable, or let's just say competitive, in the TCG? I'm not sure because Super Heavy Samurai are still missing so many cards in the TCG, but in the OCG, I mean, you could definitely try it out. Master Rule 4 doesn't hurt them as much as you might actually think because they do have things like Big Ben Kai. I think he's what, 34 or like 3,500 defense or something like that. They have an Honest that's themed. They have a lot of cool cards, and this card is a bona fide staple in the decks. So let me know what you guys think of Light of Sekka. Whatever you believe, leave it in the comment section below. Again, I thought that this card was like, whoa, unplayable. Then my friend who just happened to play SHS was like, yo Cap, this card is nuts in this archetype, man. Definitely gonna play 3, and I felt like I was a little bit enlightened. Anyways, subscribe if you guys have not already. Turn on that notification bell for daily videos.